Ethan Cole was a man people admired from afar. CEO of Cole Enterprises, a billion-dollar real estate firm, he was known for his sharp mind, impeccable suits, and an aura of loneliness that made even his smiles look temporary. 2 years ago, tragedy had rewritten his life when Clara, his college sweetheart and wife of 10 years, lost her battle with leukemia. Since then, Ethan had buried himself in work, meetings, and meaningless achievements. His friends tried to pull him back into life, arranging dinners, vacations, and most recently, blind dates. He'd rejected every single one. Until now. The truth was, Ethan hadn't agreed to this date willingly. His best friend, Liam, had practically begged him. "Come on, man. It's been 2 years," Liam said earlier that week. "Just one dinner. If you hate it, I'll never mention dating again." Ethan had sighed. "Fine. One dinner. But if she talks about astrology or manifesting energy, I'm leaving." And that's how he found himself at the Lantern, a quiet Italian restaurant Clara used to love. He hadn't been back there since her passing. The air smelled of rosemary and nostalgia. He glanced at his watch, ready to order a drink and leave if his date didn't show up. But just then, she walked in. A woman with chestnut hair and calm, unsure eyes. She wore a navy blue dress, not too glamorous, not too plain, and held her purse tightly as if it carried something more than lipstick and keys. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on him. "Ethan?" she asked softly, her voice steady yet fragile. He nodded, standing politely. "You must be Amelia," she said, sitting down. Amelia Hart. There was something about her presence, gentle yet oddly familiar. Ethan couldn't place it, but she reminded him of something long lost. They exchanged pleasantries, awkward smiles, and brief glances. The waiter brought them wine, and for a while, the conversation stayed polite. Amelia asked about his company, his interests, and his memories of travel. Ethan answered mechanically, as if reading from a script. He'd done this before. Small talk, polite laughter, fake smiles, it all blurred together. But then, she said something that caught him off guard. "I'm sorry if this feels strange, Ethan," she said, looking down. "I almost didn't come tonight." He raised a brow. "You and me both." She smiled faintly. "It's not that I didn't want to meet you. It's just, I wasn't sure if I should." Something flickered in her tone, a tremor of truth. Ethan leaned slightly forward. "What do you mean?" Amelia hesitated, eyes glistening under the warm restaurant light. "You don't know me, but someone you loved once did." Ethan froze. "What?" Amelia took a deep breath. "I knew Clara." The world seemed to tilt for a moment. Her name, Clara, was a sound he hadn't heard spoken aloud in months. It hit him like thunder. Ethan's voice was low, careful. How did you know my wife?" Amelia swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the edge of her glass. "Clara was my sister." The room around them went silent in Ethan's mind. The clinking glasses, soft music, all faded away. He stared at Amelia, speechless. Clara had never mentioned a sister. Not once. I don't understand," he managed. "Clara never told me she had a sister." Amelia's eyes softened. "I know. We were estranged. Years ago, before she met you, our family broke apart after our parents' divorce. She stayed with our mother. I went with our father. We lost touch. I tried reaching her once, but she didn't reply. I thought she didn't want me in her life." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, Ethan saw tears form at the corners of her eyes. "But when she passed," Amelia continued, "I found letters she'd written, letters she never sent. One of them was for you. And one was for me." Ethan felt his heartbeat in his throat. "What did it say?" "She wanted me to find you. To make sure you were okay. She said you'd never let anyone in again, and that if I ever got the chance, I should remind you that loving again isn't betrayal, it's healing." Ethan sat still, his hands trembling slightly. He couldn't speak. His heart was thundering against years of silence. "I didn't come tonight because of Liam's arrangement," Amelia admitted, her voice shaking. "I came because I knew you'd be here. I asked him to set it up. I just didn't know how to tell you." Ethan leaned back, staring at her with disbelief and something else, a deep, piercing ache that was both painful and liberating. He'd spent years building walls, protecting himself from feeling anything again. But here was this woman, his late wife's sister, carrying the last words of the person he'd loved most. After a long pause, Ethan spoke quietly. "You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have put yourself in this position." Amelia nodded. "I know. But Clara asked me to. She said you'd never listen to anyone else. And she was right, wasn't she?" Ethan looked down. His fingers brushed against his wedding ring, still on his hand after 2 years. "I don't know if I can," he whispered. "Every time I think about moving on, I feel like I'm leaving her behind." Amelia reached across the table, her hand barely touching his. "You're not leaving her. You're carrying her forward. She wanted you to live, Ethan. Not just exist." The silence that followed was heavy, but not empty. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel completely alone. They talked for hours that night about Clara, about their childhoods, about the guilt that followed grief. Amelia showed him one of Clara's letters, folded neatly in her purse. The handwriting was unmistakable, elegant, looping, filled with warmth. "My love," it began, "if you ever find yourself reading this, it means I couldn't stay. But please, Ethan, promise me something. Don't let my absence turn your heart into a graveyard. Let someone in again. Someone kind. Someone who reminds you that you're still alive." By the time Ethan finished reading, tears blurred the ink. He looked up, his voice barely a whisper. She always knew exactly what to say. Amelia smiled through her own tears. She really did. Weeks turned into months. Ethan and Amelia didn't fall into romance, not immediately. Their bond was built on something deeper, understanding. She became a bridge between his past and his healing. They met for coffee, sometimes shared dinners, sometimes simply talked about Clara, what she loved, what she feared, what she left behind. And slowly, without realizing it, Ethan began to smile again. Not the forced, professional smile he gave to the world, but one that reached his eyes. He started to notice little things again, the sound of laughter in a cafe, the warmth of sunlight through his office window, the way life quietly went on even after pain. One afternoon, months later, he took Amelia to the same restaurant, the place where they'd first met. "You know," he said, looking across the table, "I thought that night was a mistake. I was angry, confused, maybe even a little scared." Amelia tilted her head. "And now?" Ethan smiled softly. "Now I think it was the most important mistake of my life." She laughed, her eyes shining. "Clara would be happy to hear that." He nodded. "She would." Then he added quietly, "And I think she'd be happy that I'm finally keeping my promise to live again." As they sat there, the waiter brought their coffee. The same gentle music played in the background, and for the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel haunted by memories. He felt surrounded by them, comforted, not crushed. Sometimes, love doesn't come twice, it just returns in a different form. And for Ethan Cole, his final blind date wasn't a mistake after all. It was the beginning of forgiveness, healing, and a new kind of love, the one his late wife had always hoped he'd find again.